What's up, YouTube? In today's video, we're going to talk about recruiting or hunting 10 out of 10 candidates. And this is a guide specifically for 8 and 9 figure founders. So if you're in a position where you're the founder, everything runs through you, and then because that growth stalls because you only can focus on so many things at a time, this video is exactly for you. And I'm going to show you how to hire true A players. So people who have done it before, they've solved your exact problem. They're hands-on, so they're not running presentation decks or, wanting a huge team under them. They just, again, solve your problem. They self-direct and don't need hand-holding. So yeah, just a few examples to kind of show you the caliber of talent we've been able to pull with this method and to prove that we know what we're talking about. So we were able to get Hormozi's marketing director. That was for an 8-figure SaaS, which is a good accomplishment, but they were still little known. So we were able to attract someone of very high caliber for them. There was a company doing digital products, and they were just shying up 9 figures. Again, super good accomplishment, but they weren't like a household name or anything. So they were opening a meal replacement business line, and we got them an executive from Huel. To the last round, they ended up going with another person, but there were a number of amazing people that we were able to attract for them. And then, for a 9-figure Amazon brand that was going omnichannel, again, getting to 9 figures on Amazon with a single brand, that's almost unheard of. So these guys, they're really amazing. So credit to them. But they, again, people outside of the Amazon bubble didn't necessarily know them. But we were able to land a really, really nice success story. If you don't know, Goli went to like 600 million within a year. So just an outstanding story of that person that our client now has. My story is that I'm a founder turned headhunter. So I exited an 8-figure online business in 2020. Now I help founders build their dream teams. Have worked with more than 100 8 and 9 figure brands. So yeah, have learned quite a bit during this time. So happy to share all of it with you today. And I wanted to start off with a question. So if you think of Mark Zuckerberg, right, one of the most accomplished founders, one of the most amazing stories of our time. If you remember, he's throwing around these 100 million offers to AI scientists, right? So why is it that a single person can command $100 million? And is Zuckerberg completely crazy? Is he too much on the AI hype train? Maybe. But if you think about it, he must think that this person will make that money back many times over, right? So maybe not directly in revenue, but in enterprise value for sure. And to him, it's almost pocket change. Obviously, I wish I could get that sort of a search going, but the principles remain the same in any search. And so essentially my point and probably what Zuck was thinking is that great hires is the ultimate arbitrage, more than knowing, the hottest new channel, more than knowing AI, more than any skill that you could have. It's who, not how. So again, this book, by the way, you don't need to read. It could have been a tweet, but the principle is really strong. So you want to, rather than kind of figuring out how to do everything yourself and spend many months and years doing it, you can just get a person who's done it already before. And that's to me, that's a cheat code. So yep, they remove bottleneck, they compress the learning curve, and they let you move up in the company and work on higher leverage stuff. But yeah, I just can't express how important this concept is. So let me give you a 3-part system that kind of explains this approach, and we'll explain how we were able to pull some of these amazing people for accomplished but relatively little known brands. So yeah, and let's get into it. And first one is just realizing who to hire. And you start with the bottleneck. So you understand what is it that's slowing your growth currently. Typically, there is one thing that really, if you unlock that one, either you get to amazing growth immediately. I've seen it time and time again with our hires and with our clients, or it lets you move to the next problem, which then, you solve a few of these bottlenecks and then they compound and let you achieve this amazing growth, right? So again, another book that could have been a tweet, but the principle is super, super key. And what does that look like in reality? Because it might sound great, right? So, if I could get this dream person that unlocks my company, great, but do they really exist? they do. And but there is a certain way to think about it, right? So and there are two kind of axes or decision points. One is who can solve my problem, right? So who has seen it before, um, who's dealt with it before, because the you should generally trust people who with any sort of problem. You should generally trust people who have solved that problem before, right? So um, what typically happens though, the people in your company, they're really loyal. They have the context of the company, but they haven't solved it. So you're typically stuck here, right? So with people who haven't solved the problem before. Then what you might think is you need to go is what you think you might need to do is go for a smart outsider. So someone who can solve the problem on paper at least. But the problem is, and the reason why you're probably hesitant is that they need to learn your company context first. There's so many things that you built already that they'll, if they come in, they'll likely have no clue how they're run, especially if you made hiring mistakes before. This is probably one of the first things you learn. It's like, okay, someone might be smart, they might be hardworking, but do they understand my business? And so obviously you don't want someone who can't solve the problem, doesn't have the context. That's just a waste of time. But the real cheat code is someone who solved it before and in a similar context. So when they come in, they can come with a solution and they know what your company is about and what they operate. So what does that look like? It's by definition, there are 100 companies that are the closest to yours in terms of business model, in terms of niche, in terms of scale, kind of how the team is set up. What I mean here is that typically we work with bootstrapped lean teams. So that's something we're looking for. And of course, culture and pace is important too. So if you take all these criteria, measure every company in the world against it, there are going to be 100 that are closest to your context. And those are the ones that matter. The further away from your context they are, the less of a context the person has, the less they can help you. But once you bring in people from these maybe 100 companies, then that's the ultimate cheat code, and that's what lets you grow. And then instead of spending 6, 12, 18 months on a problem that's really painful, you can solve it within a couple of months or so. So that's who to hire. The most important part, I think, understanding this is the biggest kind of unlock that serious founders get at some point sooner or later, and you might as well do it sooner. So then your question might be, how to attract them. Again, going back to our example here, why would Hermose's marketing director leave an awesome gig? Why would someone from Huel be interested in a company that's quite unknown? Same thing with Gully, right? So what A players generally care about is some sort of combination of these 5 factors, right? So they want to work on an awesome product. So something that's coming up in the market and that they haven't necessarily seen before, or something that just should exist in the world and that they truly believe in. Some people are more motivated by this. Some people are less motivated by this, but it factors into the decision for sure. They want to have autonomy, and that's the thing with those bigger companies. There are many cooks in the kitchen, and yeah, they just want to have a bit more of a say. And if they have the track record, why not give it to them, and then have that amazing person solve your problems. They want to have impact. So to me, it's almost like a combination of these two. They also want to have more impact, and it's almost the combination of product and autonomy. So they want to bring something cool to the world. They want to have more of a say in that, and that to me results in impact. If you can offer it, they want to have more freedom. So in some cases, people need to work in office. If you have a remote team, that's great. If you have an in-office team, you can say, hey, why don't you come in at first once a month, and maybe every other month, and maybe once a quarter. That's already could be a huge win. So you can set up, give them a setup that they desire. They'll still work hard, but you kind of can be a bit more lenient towards them, and they are attracted by scale, right? So if you're just starting out, typically they won't be attracted, but if you're in that 8 or 9 figure range, they're like, okay, there's some proof and things are happening. The other thing you should do is really be careful about setting up the role. So on one hand, we've seen these job ads where people say, hey, here's 150,000 or something, come run my company. That's not a good monetary offer, and it's way too broad of a scope. But if you give them competitive competition, number one, and we'll talk about that in a second. And number two, a scope that is appropriate, they'll respond. And again, you approach people with the right kind of scope. And just to give you an example, one time we were looking for a CMO, and I was early on in my career as a headhunter. And I was thinking, why don't these marketing directors go for it? It's such a step up for them. They should love this opportunity, but they knew that the scope is too broad. So I guess the point here is take care in setting up the role right. And then of course the other thing is that these people who can actually solve your problem, they recognize that their skill set is rare, right? So if you have an 8 or 9 figure business, it's worth quite a bit. They know that if they can, 2x it, 3x it, that's also worth quite a bit. And so they're looking out for the best offer for themselves, as they should. So the compensation should be something that's attractive enough for them to move. At the same time, you can set it up that it still makes sense for you, right? So it can be performance driven. If you're willing to give up equity, that's something that can be super attractive. And there are tons of considerations here. You don't have to always give up equity. You can just set up nice performance incentives, but it has to be the compensation that makes sense for the candidate. Otherwise, they wouldn't take their call. And I always tell my clients, once we kind of lay out that offer in 1 to 2 sentences, anyone who's willing to or able to solve your problem should be dumb to say no. They should look at it and they're like, oh, I could do this. I could get a significant bump on what I'm doing now if I'm able to reach those results. And of course, I have to take the call. And that's kind of the approach that you should be taking. So then once you've attracted a bunch of great people, how to filter them. This honestly is probably the easiest part to anyone, to any founder. I mean, they understand they need to be screened. And here you just want to get the specifics fast. So essentially, you don't want to waste your own time on anyone who's not qualified. So a good recruiter will do that for you. Then you get into a detailed interview, and it's a case study. And especially you ask them, okay, what is it that you've done? What is your biggest accomplishment? Walk me through how you achieved it, and do it 2 or 3 times over. And you'll see that people who give you kind of these high level responses, but don't ever go into details, you can kind of see that they'll operate the same way at your company, right? So whereas someone who's a true A player, they'll know exactly what they did. They know what they measured the outcome. They'll walk you through all the detailed steps and all the detailed considerations and also failures that they took. So this is a super revealing interview, and the more into details you get, the better. Kind of the follow-up step is you either give them some sort of assignment or you ask them to problem solve in real time. Either is fine, but you want to test them on a problem that's specific to yours. And so again, interviews and talking, they're nice, but solving real problems is what really matters. So you definitely want to check against that. You don't want to skip this step. Then if possible, and it isn't always, but if possible, you want to trial that person. So start with, ask them, maybe they can work on the weekends, maybe they can work for a few hours for a couple of weeks and see that the partnership's actually good. They should be interested in that because if they're making a career altering decision, they really, really want to be sure. So obviously their setup doesn't always allow it. Most of the time they're in busy roles already, but if at all possible, try some sort of version of this, or at the very least have a number of follow-up conversations, meet in person, do whatever it takes to be as sure as you can be that the cooperation will work out. And then for references, I think honestly this step is overrated. There's something to be said about the threat of a reference check, right? So telling people, hey, what would this person tell you, and kind of implying that you will go out and check, just to make sure that they're telling the whole truth. In reality, though, when you do those reference checks, it's hard to do it in the classical sense, where you're like checking the past employers and seeing, is this person the real deal? Why? Because you haven't screened the person that's giving the reference, and maybe they're not trustworthy at all. maybe they're bummed that this person has left them. There's so many different things that could derail the reference check, and you have no way of telling. So how me and my clients approach this is that we're just trying to learn about the person. So at this stage, we already know we want to work with them, but we want to see, hey, is there anything that they're really strong at, where they excel, where the type of problems they be pushed towards, or is there something where they didn't excel, isn't their kind of cup of tea, is something that they could advise you on how to work with them better. So that's what I'd use reference checks for. And so yeah, at first the resume gets them in, right? So they're from these really great companies that are similar to yours. But what keeps them there is agency, if I had to put it in one word. So being able to communicate what they've done in the past, being able to solve your problems, and actually working well with you. So this is how you get 10 out of 10 candidates to join you. And there is something to be said about actually hunting them, right? So with traditional recruiting, you wait for applicants. Some people apply. Are they from those 100 companies that are closest to yours? Almost guaranteed that they aren't. So the miss rate is really high. So what you need to do is go out and hunt those people, right? So you get these relevant candidates. You'll be able to position your role properly, and you'll filter for signal, right? And so what we're able to do is make really fast hires, even for complicated roles. Many times, or most of the time, we're able to do it in less than 3 weeks. We get great fits in, so our 12-month success rate is 93%. And of course, you result with making more money, which is always the goal, right? So if you have a key role, you're welcome to book a call. See the link in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.